Coming up on Tech Thing is Motorola's Moto G6, the best bargain in Android. Taps wearable keyboard means one-handed typing. Format before using this drive. What about losing your files? Best podcatchers and more. All coming up on Tech Thing. Without the support of our patrons at patreon.com/techthing, Tech Thing wouldn't happen. Certainly not each and every week. Join the crew that makes Tech Thing possible at patreon.com/techthing. And a big thank you to all our patrons, especially Erwin, Shano, Jim V, and Carl G. Seriously, join the crew that makes Tech Thing possible at patreon.com/techthing.
I'm Shannon Morse.
And I'm stomping on cables, which gets really expensive if you stomp on the wrong cable. I'm Patrick Norton.
And this is Tech Thing, where we have something useful in every single show.
Remember, kids, don't chew on cables. Don't let your dog chew on the cables. Don't stomp on the cables. And rocking chairs and power cables, bad mix.
All of those things are a bad mix, yes.
Oh my goodness, especially dogs and cables. I still don't understand how our husky chewed through a 15 amp power cable that was plugged into a wall without electrocuting herself or blowing a circuit breaker.
Wow, you are lucky she's still alive.
Heavily insulated teeth.
My goodness, apparently. Well, we have gotten a few requests for a budget Android phone pick. We've gotten lots of requests because we've reviewed a lot of the $1,000 price phones.
She loves her flagships.
I really do. I love my flagships, but I was like, we should really look at some budget phones. So this week I'm taking a look at the Motorola Moto G6. It's a $250 unlocked phone that comes in either black or blush. And
blush?
Yes, blush. It's really,
pink?
Yeah, they have a blush version.
Subtle pink?
Yeah, so
Pastel-y pink?
You can find it over at Motorola.com, and it's also available online over on Amazon, so I'll put those links below if you're interested. But it basically features a 5.7-inch IPS LCD 1080p display with an 18:9 aspect ratio, so that's very, very common now. I do notice that the pixels are a little bit more noticeable on this phone compared to what I'm used to.
Well, they did this sort of like the thing people are doing now, where they make the screens narrower and it's longer, which makes it easier to use in one hand.
Yes. It does.
I don't really have an issue with 1080p.
I don't either.
Plus the battery life on it is usually fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. So even though I do notice the pixels a little bit more than what I'm used to, for example, the icons look a little bit less sharp, but overall you really don't notice it after a long time of using the phone, which I truly appreciate. But it is not as noticeable on this size of a screen, and it still has stunning colors too. The colors are very accurate. It gets very bright. When you turn down the brightness, it gets very, very dim, and I highly prefer that, especially when I'm like sitting in bed looking at YouTube videos or whatever. The screen does not give you that bezel-less look that is trending these days, so you still have a pretty thick bezel on this phone, but you do get a fingerprint sensor on the front, which I appreciate too, because I constantly find myself having this thing down on a desk, and then I have to flip it over and use the fingerprint sensor, so I like having one on the front. It's nice. It's very nice.
I would also like to point out at this point that the $1,000 flagship from Google recently had some problems with, a bluish screen instead of white and some other things. So I'm feeling good about this so far.
Yeah, I'm feeling good too. So with the fingerprint sensor, it's pretty quick and painless. It's responsive, which is nice. It's not as fast as the One Plus that I reviewed recently, but it's still very, very good.
Less than half the price.
Yeah, less than half the price. Face Unlock, on the other hand, was not as quick and responsive. It did not work every single time that I thought that it would. So for example, there we go. Okay, it finally worked. Yeah, so it's not as responsive. It's not as good, so I would probably stick with fingerprint sensor.
Under pressure.
Yeah. The back has a really nice curve to it, but it feels kind of plasticky, even though it is glass. It is Gorilla Glass all around.
I think I'd rather have plastic.
Yeah, me too. It's easier, and I've already dropped this thing like 5 times. Luckily, though, since it is Corning Gorilla Glass, it hasn't broken on me, which is good. It feels very thin at 8.3 millimeters, and it does come with P2i nano coating, water resistant, so if you get some water in there, it's not going to bug it too much. It also includes Bluetooth 4.0, wireless, and GPS, but there is no NFC on here, and there is no wireless charging, which I was not expecting anyway for the price. The phone charges via USB-C, which I truly appreciate as well, and it took me about 1 hour and 40 minutes to fully charge from 0%, and that's with a 3,000 milliamp per hour battery. Nice. And next to the USB-C is my favorite thing. It's a headphone jack.
Aww.
Heck yes, I love it. Thank you so much, Motorola. But if you don't want to use that, there are also one front-facing speaker with Dolby Audio, and the audio is about the same as like a $25 Bluetooth speaker. It gets rather loud, but it's not that great, which is unfortunate, but you know, it's not terrible, but having dual speakers definitely would be nice in my preference.
I gotta say, you're also at the far end of the curve for wanting dual forward-facing stereo speakers on a phone with bass. That's all you want.
I am an absolute weirdo when it comes to how I listen to stuff on my phone.
I'm not saying you're weird. You just you have heard your optimal configuration.
It's true.
And you will never suffer anything less than that.
Yeah, it's true. And inside this little baby, you have got a Qualcomm Snapdragon 450 1.8 gigahertz octa-core processor, and there's a 600 megahertz Adreno 506 GPU. It also comes with 3 gigs of RAM here in the United States, 32 gigs of storage, and you can also add a micro SD card up to 128 gigs. So even though that internal storage is only 32, you can increase it, which is good.
If you're in the UK, you can get a 64 gigabyte model with like 6 gigabytes of RAM. I would say something, but this is a family-friendly show. Let's just let me imply jealousy at this point.
Jealousy. Let's talk about the cameras.
Good or bad?
I'll tell you in a sec. So you probably already noticed it does have dual cameras on the back. They are 12 megapixels and 5 megapixels respectively with an f1.8 aperture. They can shoot 1080p 60 FPS video, time lapses, slow-mo. This camera has some really nice nifty features. It's got a smart camera which can do object and landmark recognition. So if you point it at something you don't know what that thing is, it will find it for you and tell you about that thing, which is really cool.
That is Mount Rushmore.
I pointed it at my little black cat and it brought up short-haired black cat. And I was like, oh, cool, in case I didn't know what kind of animal that was. So that was neat and it worked. It will pull up any kind of information as well as text scanning too. So if you point this at something like a business card, it will automatically read that text and turn it into a PDF, turn it into a contact, whatever you need, which is really, really awesome and something that I wish my Pixel phone had. So I was a little jealous there. It can also do face filters like Snapchat filters. So I did this one with cat ears. It has a portrait mode, panorama, and color modes too. And they've also included manual mode, but there is no option to switch to RAW photography, so you are stuck with JPEGs, which is also kind of unfortunate. The front camera is 8 megapixels. It features a wide-angle group selfie mode, which I didn't necessarily like. I thought it looked exactly like regular mode. There are face filters, and there's 1080p 30 FPS video, which you can also use for time-lapse and slow-mos. Now, on the pictures that I took, which you're seeing here, the photos kind of left a lot to be desired. The pictures in low light settings had a hard time focusing on the subject, and photos in bright light seemed slightly washed out, like this beautiful art that we saw outside of our office here in Oakland. So I was a little disappointed in that. But they were decent, I guess I would say. Portrait mode was not as good.
I would also say you didn't use a Motorola G4, which took pictures like they'd been made with crayons by an angry 7-year-old. So, you know, it's okay. So it's not as good as $1,000.
It's not as good, and it's not as good as the OnePlus either. I would say because the washed out colors, like when you're looking at the art, the mural paintings and stuff like that, is. You know, it's unfortunate.
Is that something that could be impacted with firmware updates in the future?
Yeah, I would say so. Since it's not something that is hardware related, it would be how the camera is processing the photo after it takes the picture. Because you look at the picture and it looks fine on screen, but as soon as you take the photo, which also takes a little bit of time too, between the shutter and the actual saving of the photo.
And that's 60% faster than it was in the last model.
Yeah. There's also a portrait mode, which was decent, but not as good as what I'm used to. I lost a ton of quality overall, which was, I didn't like those face filters. Those things lost a ton of quality, which they were terrible. The color spot did an okay job of removing color from photos, but not excellent. Like I have this picture of a green succulent. It removed the red from the pavement behind it, but it kept the brown soil underneath it. And I was like, well, it got like halfway there, so that's good. On the front-facing camera, bright light like the sun behind me and Perrin in this photo completely blew out the background and it lost detail. And the electronic image stabilization in video was pretty terrible, but the videos were crystal clear and they were extremely detailed at 1080p 60 FPS. So as long as you're not walking, you can still get very good video out of this. Just keep in mind the EIS is not that great. The G6 does come with Moto software. It is not vanilla Android, but it is built on Android 8.0 Oreo, so it is nice and updated. There's no bloatware, surprisingly. I was expecting to have bloatware. Just the Google applications that come with all Google phones, and the software is honestly not intrusive at all, so I was very surprised at how much I enjoyed using it. It's very clean, it's very responsive, it's easy to navigate and understand how to use it. Moto also comes with gesture controls, which I honestly tried, but didn't really use them at all. And some cute little widgets, like there is this one on the home page that I'm using here that shows your battery life as a circle, which is around the clock, which I thought was very handy and useful. Overall, I was pretty impressed, even though this phone is missing some features. So it doesn't have a high-res screen. It doesn't have more storage unless you use micro SD card, which then you have to purchase separately. The camera left much to be desired, and there was no wireless charging. But it is very, very clean. It's decently fast, and it includes that headphone jack, which is awesome. I mean, overall, I think it's a great deal for $250, especially since when you're looking at all of the prices for Android phones nowadays, unless you're spending like $500 or more, you're probably not going to get a lot of those fancy little features like wireless charging.
Well, it's hard, right? Because you've got like $1,000 flagship phones.
Yeah.
You've got the OnePlus 6, which delivers most of the flagship performance for like $580.
Right.
Or $680 if you want to get 256 gigabytes of storage. I once
quite a bit.
impressive. And then you drop down, and there's always been this grab bag that has varied from it kind of make calls, and that's sort of a camera, to now you've got phones that actually have fairly, I mean, because I want to say, like, if you'd spent more time using crappy phones, I wonder if this phone would seem more impressive or less impressive.
Me too. I am very curious about that, and I want to check out more budget phones to compare it to. But from comparing this to what I was using a couple of years ago, this was a flagship. I mean, this was better than a flagship a few years ago. So overall, I would say it's a very good phone.
Because if the Motorola G4 I used to run, the first LTE phone they did, the G4 line, if it had cameras that good, I would still be on Android and not iOS.
That's the thing. So yeah, it was pretty fun to check it out, and I would love to know if there are any other budget phones that you would like me to check out. Android specifically, I never use iPhones, even though there is no budget iPhone, really. So let me know what Android phones you want me to check out on the show. I would love to do that for you. Ask at techthing.com, or you can comment right below.
One-handed typing? Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Yeah, hold your phone or tablet with one hand, type without looking at the screen. Some of you are going, yes, and the rest of you are thinking, why?
I'm in the why department.
Okay, so this thing I'm holding up right here is the Tap wearable keyboard. It's kind of like a glove. It's your basic Bluetooth enabled. No, officer, these are not brass knuckles. They're an input device that runs on Bluetooth. Basically, it converts finger taps into the characters on the screen. Or you can actually mouse with your thumb, kind of. And technically, it's also a game controller, though the list of supported games is incredibly short because the only people currently supporting this to control games are people that the developer paid to put control by this into the games.
No wonder.
So let's talk about the actual strength of this thing. Tapping or typing. You launch an app called Tap Genius. It takes you from single finger letters A, E, I, O, U all the way through 3 and 4 finger combinations like X, which is your pointer, your ring, and your pinky, or J, which is thumb, pointer, ring, and pinky. Whoa. And if you tap all 5 fingers for a space, and then you tap twice for a period. Now, if this sounds familiar to you, it's probably because you've either spent time in a courtroom or watching court dramas, and you've seen stenographers, which are the people that sit quietly and take the notes in the corner of the courtroom. Stenography uses chording. And chording is where you basically press these key combinations to create the letters on the little the thing.
It's really cool.
Yes, and it's much quieter than a typewriter, which is why they use them in courtrooms. So this works. That said, every alternative keyboard, whether it's a full keyboard or an ergonometric keyboard or an unusual layout keyboard, or if you're using Dvorak instead of QWERTY, has a learning curve, and you have to climb it. And if you climb that curve, then you turn this from, ooh, cyberpunk jewelry to functional human interface device. It only requires one hand. Now, you are going to need to mind your fingers when you're not intending to type. If you leave it on all day, you'll make accidental key presses that will drive you completely nuts.
Yeah.
And frankly, if you don't leave it on, the process of getting the case, getting the tap on, setting up the Bluetooth connection, and then entering in the date on that order form is probably more than you're going to want to deal with, right? It's not the kind of thing where you're going to be like, oh yeah, I'll just throw this on and type in my password.
Yeah.
Yeah. I found it really useful when I had a bunch of short email answers I wanted to launch. Bigger concern for some users has been the tap's accuracy. So they show videos of people like using it on their arm.
Oh.
Or like you're sitting, you know that's stuffed in the airplane seat?
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, okay, I can use this
Use it on your leg.
on your leg, right? That's the
Yeah.
theory. It works, it just works a little more slowly. The tap, so each of these, each of the 5 knuckles, each of these actually has a sensor inside of it, and they work better when there's a firm surface to tap on.
Yeah.
So
That makes sense.
the more solid something is, like a desk, the better the tap works. But at a desk, I can use a keyboard, at least if I have 2 hands. I type 60, 80 words per minute, so I'm probably never going to use something like the tap for any situation where I can actually use a real keyboard. Now, if you're a mediocre hunt and peck typist, I know you're out there, you 2-fingered wonders. 20 words per minute on tap might be awesome. If you use a stylus for art with the occasional text entry with the other hand, I can see the tap being awesome. If you have,
Limited use too.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
this would have been great to have when my one arm was strapped to my body for 3.5 weeks.
Totally.
Or other accessibility issues. Tap could be an answer for you. Although I would say with accessibility, you do have to be able to get it on your hand, and you're
Yeah.
probably not going to be able to get this on with one hand.
True.
So, if you're wondering, tap's made of TPU, thermoplastic polyurethane. It resists oil and grease and abrasion. It's got some nice elasticity. There's a bit of give to it. The material is used in phone cases and tubes and medical devices, and I think at least 1 pair of Adidas shoes. In terms of durability, I think this is actually going to hold up fine over time.
So how long does it last?
Tap says it lasts about 8 hours, which seems to jibe in my experiences. And
not
then
bad.
there's 8 recharges when the case is full.
Oh, nice.
So you charge the case off a micro USB. The case has, in theory, right, between the case and the device, you can get like 64 or 72 hours of charging.
It's not bad.
Not bad at all, actually.
I want to see the case.
You should see the case. You should also try to put this out. As Shannon will demonstrate in a moment, there is a reason this is available in small and large, and that's because some hands are bigger than others,
Oh,
like
yeah.
mine.
That's way too big for my hands.
Yeah, you can adjust it and tighten it up a little bit, but you would be a small, not a large.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this will straight up fall off my hands.
Don't let it drop to the floor. Actually, I'm sure it'll be fine, but price on this is $180. Do yourself a favor if you buy one. Fire up Tap Genius immediately and start training. I'm curious. We got one viewer actually sent in a alternative keyboard that we'll be talking about in the next couple weeks. Because the learning curve for alternative keyboard layouts is a bit of a climb.
Yeah.
But if you're curious about alternative input devices like this, let us know. Email ask@techthing.com or any other products you'd like to see us review. One thing I didn't mention, and we both found this really amusing, the tap is magnetically held into the case, which is actually pretty slick if you've ever dropped earbuds out of a charging case. And I gotta say, Tap Genius, I've used a lot of applications to teach typing or teach alternative devices, and Tap Genius is really one of the best apps I've ever seen for learning how to use something like this. Much as I love Mavis Beacon. We love your questions, your tips, and your suggestions of products and ideas to check out. You can tweet @TechThing, @Snubs, or @Patrick Norton, or just email ask@techthing.com. And a big shout out to our patrons at patreon.com/techthing. You pay the bills, you make the show possible. Our thanks goes out to you. Join the crew that makes TechThing happen at patreon.com/techthing. We appreciate it.
We got an email from Howard who writes, I have a Western Digital 3 terabyte external hard drive that I use as a backup, but lately when I plug it in with USB, it gives me an error message telling me I have to format the drive to access it. How do I refresh the partition table so I don't lose my files? Love the show, keep it up. Howard from Arlington, Texas. Thank you, Howard. Thank you so much.
Sorry, I've seen that message. You need to format the disk in the drive before you can use it.
Yep.
I hate that one. My first thought is to run data recovery software, then format the beast and start over again. You might be able to rebuild the partition, but I tend to be afraid of losing data in the process of trying to repair the drive.
Yeah.
And even before that though, try plugging into a different USB port, or better yet, a different computer, because sometimes, say Shannon's computer won't see it, we can plug it into
Yep.
my computer, and magically it works, which makes no sense, but this is computing, and the rules of voodoo apply, just like percussive maintenance. If you're feeling fearless, fire up your Windows machine, go to Windows key plus X, that'll bring up the admin command prompt, and then type in chkdsk space d : space/f/r//x, where D is whatever drive letter you're having problems with, /F tells check disk to fix errors, /R tries to recover data from bad sectors, and /X dismounts the drive before the process starts so you don't do something silly like try to write to it at the same time. I'd really try running data recovery software first because I am chicken and afraid of losing data. Just want to say that. There are a ton of options out there. This is probably going to require something a little more advanced than Recover, as much as I like saying Recover. And it also Recover is just so pretty.
I know, right?
It's like, you're terrified, but I'm perky, and we're going to go save the files off that flash drive. A little more advanced, Stellar Data Recovery has some very, very good reviews. PC Mag Editor's Choice. $99 for a lifetime, but there's a free trial, and I love this about data recovery software. Free trial so you can download it and scan and preview the data it can recover from the drive.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and I think it's actually really slick. Probably the most powerful tool for consumers, or one of the most powerful tools for consumers, is, ladies and gentlemen, Kroll OnTrack's Easy Recovery Home. I love the motto of this company: your data is not gone until we say so. So much attitude. They also offer a free trial to Hunt for Data. Kroll also does file recovery where you send them the dead drive free via UPS. Easy Recovery Home is $79 a year. And again, before anybody writes, it's okay to make money. And quite frankly, they're trying to save your lost files. They're not going to give away anything they can pay for, but they give you a free trial, which is nice, because there's nothing that sucks worse than paying, say, personal example, several $100s for a data recovery tool that doesn't work. Yeah.
Very true.
Easy Recovery, some people find the interface on the app maddening, but it is incredibly fast and pretty effective. Be patient and work your way through it. Big suggestion from Data Recovery Pros: pull the drive out of the USB enclosure and connect it to a SATA port directly on your motherboard. A lot of times this will give you better results than the chips inside of the USB adapter itself.
Yeah, totally.
Good luck.
Oh, good luck, man. Homer emailed ask@techthing.com, what is the best podcast downloader? Can you give me some answers? Yes, I think we can. I think we could.
What's a podcatcher? Oh my goodness. Shifty Jelly's Pocket Cast is pretty awesome. Available on
love
Android,
Pocket Cast.
iOS, Sonos, all those things.
My favorite.
They are so awesome, in fact, that NPR actually partnered with some of the biggest podcast makers in the world, WNYC Studios, WEC Chicago, and This American Life. They actually acquired Pocket Cast to, well, keep it being awesome and independent. Then Homer emailed back for a Windows 10 computer too. Now there is a web-based version of Pocket Cast that'll run on your desktop, which I really haven't spent a lot of time with, but when you go around, there's like one name that keeps coming up over and over again in terms of Windows 10 podcasts. That is Grover Pro.
Oh.
Possibly the finest Windows 10 podcatcher out there, and considered an exemplary Universal Windows Platform app. And apparently it'll, work on everything from your Holo goggles to, should you still be running one, an actual Windows phone.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
I know there literally is one of you, I think, still using a Windows phone out there. You go. Grover also, I think, look at the iTunes API database, which is an awesome way to find podcasts because they all seem to end up in the iTunes database. Brace for impact. It does cost $2.99.
$3.
Oh my goodness.
That's okay.
Hey, you know what? I think it's
I
a
will
bargain.
feed a developer.
Oh wait. It looks like it's free now.
Really?
Look at that.
Ooh.
Open the Microsoft Store. Here we go. It's free.
Nice.
So apparently it used to be $2.99.
That's awesome.
How about that, kids?
Well, your knowledge of VPNs just keeps on pouring into our email inbox. We also got a message from Mark who says, I have been using VMware products since the late 1990s, now mainly use it on my MacBook with VMware Fusion. You can even access the Boot Camp partition from within Fusion when running macOS, so you can run your VM with native hardware on the Mac using Boot Camp, but if you need to open that computer up while running macOS, you totally can too.
Cool.
A few tips for specs on the VMs are make sure that you give the VM enough juice, i.e. compute, to let it run properly, more than 2 cores if you can, and at least 6 to 8 gigs of RAM, even if your host machine has only 4 gigs of RAM. Try and give the VMs as much as you can spare. With the hard disk drive, make sure that you don't allow the hard disk drive to allocate all the space up front. It will grow dynamically and change the setting to create a single file for the hard disk drive and not split up the hard disk drive files up as it grows. Now, it does make it much easier to manage multiple VMs if you have only one hard disk drive file to manage. Best thing is, you can move the virtual PCs backwards and forwards between VMware Workstation and Fusion these days. I didn't know that. That's awesome. Biggest tip is to think about how productive you want to be on your VM and think of it as just another PC. That way, it'll run much better and be more productive. Anyway, hope this helps. Mark from Wollongong, Australia. I hope I said that correctly. Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there's a couple more emails we'll try to get to. One of them was epic, but it was like the
it's
magnum
so long.
opus
I know
of
the one you're
all of
talking
the
about.
different.
Yep.
We're gonna try so hard. A big shout out to Hack5 for the studio space. If you haven't been to hack5.org, go there. Check out the Security and Privacy podcast and check out their superior pen testing and USB automation tools over at hack5.org/gear. And heads up, people, look at this.
Yay!
Yay! The Pineapple Nano and Tetra just got an upgrade. Wi-Fi Pineapple Enterprise. Next level wireless auditing for your Hack5 Wi-Fi Pineapple. This free firmware upgrades adds WPA Enterprise harvesting, credential capturing, and pass-through. Head to the forums. We got a link in the show notes. There is lots of conversation about this one.
Oh yeah.
I liked the monkey.
I do too. The monkey is adorable.
It looks like
That would be Darren's art right there.
well, one, Darren rocks the 8-bit, and two, that looks like Darren's smile from a photo he used to have on the wall.
You know, yeah, it might be actually. Maybe he just like copied and pasted it from one of his pictures.
That really needs to be a t-shirt. Darren!
And you've got an analog pick for us this week, correct?
I do. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, once in a while, put down the phone, step away from the screen, and close the laptop and do something analog like build marble-powered computers.
That's a thing?
TuringTumbler.com. We actually were part of the Kickstarter for the Turing Tumble. It's basically mechanical computers powered by marbles.
That's so cool.
It is beyond awesome because you can create, it's basically a series of logic puzzles. It's not Minecraft, but the boys are obsessed with it, and they're learning.
Oh, yeah,
about
don't tell them.
gates and
Don't tell them they'll
transistors
stop.
and switches.
That's so cool.
It actually is really cool. Yeah, I may have played with it for a couple hours after they went to bed the other day.
That's adorable.
Dad, you took it apart. I'm like, well, yeah, and I put it back together. They're like the thing. And I'm like, it works. We had an argument over the location of one of the switches.
Oh my gosh.
That's all I'm going to say. Oh my goodness. I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Shannon Morse.
We'll see you next week on Tech Thing.
That sounds really fun, actually.
It is.
Now, I kind of want to steal one of these marble computers and just go at it.
No need to steal. You can buy one. Yeah, it's crazy. Bits, ramps, crossovers, interceptors, gears, and gear bits.
Ooh.
Oh, look.
How much is one?
I think they sell for about $70.
Really?
Uh-huh.
That's not bad at all.
Press to start.
So cool.
Oh, wait.
So cool. Oh, so neat.
Yeah.
I love it.
Mechanical logic. Look,
So
kids,
awesome.
Gates. It's gonna do a sort. It's sorting.
That's so cool.
It's.
Those are fun, man.
I can't wait to see how much of it we end up using for the final puzzle.
Yeah.
There was much gnashing of teeth. You are headed to the beach next week?
I am. I'm heading to the beach next week, everybody. So you will see me in the same outfit in next week's episode. Because we're pre-recording. Haha.
You could have brought a second shirt
I
like
could
I
have,
did.
but I like my shirt, so whatever. I'll wear it twice in a row. People think I don't do my laundry, which I don't.